now on, we'll have that.
This
Thank
meeting
you.
is being recorded.
Okay.
Thank you. I forgot to.
But we really appreciate your sharing.
Thank you.
Some other matters that are taking place here in the Quad City area that I'm involved in. You're aware of the project, The Last 4 Christmases with Mount Pleasant. And we have provided Christmas gifts for the children and families there. When we found out that Toys for Tots only provides for US citizen children. And that's been a really good connection in terms of with Mount Pleasant and Iowa Winds and the Presbyterian Church. And so throughout the year, Maggie and I generally will take things down to their food pantry. At this point, it's not the food pantry, but we take things down, hygiene products down that they're not able to get with food stamps, and stay connected there throughout the year. And then locally, I have started delivering food to a Burmese family, and then recently 2 families from Afghanistan. There have been a number of families coming into the Quad Cities from Afghanistan through World Relief. And so Tapestry Farms is helping with that. And Tapestry Farms started maybe 3 years ago, and it's primarily, well, they do different things with the families, immigrants coming in, but they have gardens where people are able to grow the vegetables that they're accustomed to and the foods they're more accustomed to. So then they also, Tapestry Farms then also provides food every 2 weeks for the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of the month for families. And that's interesting too. I think that the Afghanistan families, I've only been to the 2 apartments once, and the mothers seem pretty nervous about having this stranger appear at the door. But it's good, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity and to be able to help, and trying to keep in the loop as much as possible as to whatever we're able to do, and through the kindness and generosity of the sisters and associates and friends that are aware of what we're doing. Donations come in through the year as well as at Christmas time. So that's provided the opportunity to continue providing needs that people have.
I'm going to ask Irene. Irene, would you tell the people here the different places from which immigrants have come to Ottumwa, and then what they are doing there, and a little bit about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
I'm sorry. We have immigrants here from Honduras, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and we have this Micronesia. There's some from the Philippines. I mean, they're just Africa, many. And many of them are employed at the JB meat packing company here in town. And they provide good wages, but they work very hard. And so there's really great opportunities for many of the people to learn English. We have it at Indian Hills. We have an English speak, well, we have a program there to learn English. And here in this church, we received a grant from the Precious Blood Fathers to set up for English classes. So we have English classes going. There's still so many people that still do not know basic English survival classes. So I think that's really wonderful. And the children of the immigrants, they're really they're having difficulties. Well, they're learning English, and they're doing everything they can in the schools to really work with them, with all the children. And it seems like our numbers are just growing and growing. I think we have a young population, and we have so many women that are young women that are pregnant and babies. And when you come to church, you just hear those just echoing. And and then each of those countries have their different cultural ways. So it's been kind of exciting to learn how to answer, how to know, how to learn, how to attend to their needs. I think that's wonderful. I think, we don't know everything, and it's a learning experience, a wonderful experience, a transformation, you might say, to learn so differently, and to be able to relate, and to be able to have that compassion when they're struggling, whatever it is. In all these years, that's, if nothing else, I think that's what I've learned so much, or I asked God for that gift of compassion, because I think that is so necessary for all of us in so many of these situations. We'll say, oh, somebody else will take care of it. But though many times it's just us, by our words, by our actions, by our laughter, by whatever it is. That's what I say. So I don't know if that has helped.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments for Irene and Bea?
Being an Ottumwaan, thank you so much, Irene, because after Donna Donovan's death, I have not had any kind of connection to Ottumwa. My sister-in-law died, and I think there's only one nephew there, and of course he's not very conversant with me, so just because of distance and all of that. But it's just so good to hear so many good things happening in Ottumwa. Thank you so much for being.
Irene,
Thank you.
Irene, I just want you to know, and maybe other people too, that I've had experience at Broadlawns with that machine, that translating machine for people, that's unbelievable. Any nationality you can think of, they can have an interpreter there. So I would imagine that it's in a lot more hospitals than you would imagine. It is absolutely amazing, because we did have people from Bosnia and different places as well that were able to, and we were able to talk to. Irene, is there any way to do telemedicine with any of those people?
Well, I'm sure there is telemedicine, but I have not been involved with that yet. I mean, I have not heard too much, and I have not really been involved in that. But I think that's a wonderful way too.
Well, not only just the physical, but we found it extremely helpful for mental health when there are not enough providers in Iowa. We know that. But the telemedicine, the psych telemedicine was amazing. So that's another source for your people that may not know about, but you know about it. So it will move. It is something that's, and of course we all are, since the pandemic, people have done that gotten on telemedicine with their own doctors when they couldn't go visit. But it's so much cheaper and it makes more sense. And so anyway, I think you're doing, I echo Paula, that's an amazing, what you're doing and what B is doing is just absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
I was wondering for either B or Irene, how you saw COVID impact the immigrant families.
Oh my, I will answer, I can answer to that. Can you hear me? Okay. I think we all struggled with that, and I think the immigrant families struggled with even more. I think this is what I believe. There are a lot of them. Well, we had many funerals here because of COVID. And then when we asked a lot of the immigrants, are you going to get the vaccine? They're always hesitant. They're always just they're afraid. And so I believe maybe this is it. Maybe because they're in their countries, maybe they never had vaccine for just the regular diseases that may have occurred in their countries, or maybe they didn't have the money to do that. I'm not sure, but it's been really difficult. And but now we tried when we had a COVID vaccination here, and we thought we would get a large group because we're having it in the church, and not that many immigrants showed up. We had like a handful, maybe 20, 25, something like that. I think they're just a little frightened. And, but they always come and say, well, I think God will take care of us. Yes, I understand that. But then I think it just was so strange to them about the vaccine. And so they were hesitant to take it.
And my experience when I was in Texas at the respite center, the volunteers and the families, the people coming in from the border had to be tested when they first came in before they could stay there or volunteer there. And what I found out that there was a motel in San Juan where immigrants who tested positive for COVID were taken to this motel, and they stayed there until they were cleared, which I thought was really great that they did that, to help them out. And then at the respite center, once they were cleared, they stayed inside at the respite center. And I think that it had more to do, it wasn't just COVID that it had to do with, but they had to stay in the respite center until they were leaving to go to their destination.
And maybe B, you could mention, these were all people who had to stay in Mexico until they got some authorization to be able to come to the States, right?
Yes, until they were.
Tell what their history was a little bit.
Across the border in Mexico, at Rellenos, there are 3,000 people that are waiting to receive, the okay to come across. And it's the Border Patrol in Mexico and in the United States can be the Mexican Border Patrol and are really pretty brutal to people a lot. And then I know in the United States in the last 5 years, the Border Patrol have killed 60 people and no one has been held accountable for anything. Across into Mexico, people are being killed a lot. Children are being killed. And of course, people are leaving their countries because of the killings that are going on. So it's very hard. There were, I met 2 newly ordained Jesuit priests that go over to Mexico. They come to the respite center twice a week and meet with people and then have mass. And they also go across the border to where all these 3,000 people are. When they go there, they take food, camping supplies, tents, things like that, meet with people and have mass there as well. And so there, there's some contact that way. And then I also met 2 young women, probably college age, from the Baptist church, and they come to the respite center with their minister, and they also go across the border with their minister to meet with people and see what kinds of needs they might be able to help with.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you so much, Bea and Irene. We were talking last week about our mission and direction statement. And so I think this just points out how you're really contributing to living our mission and direction statements, and with being in solidarity with immigrants and refugees is one of our priorities. So thank you.
Thank you.
Shifting gears a bit here, but this will really tie in also. So for the next 15 minutes or so, what I would like to do is place the Sisters of Humility in the wider context of religious life today. And so I'll pull up the PowerPoint again here. Sorry, I'll have to give that another try. Okay. There are 3 important aspects of religious life: prayer, community, and ministry. We have talked a lot about ministry, both already today, and then that was a big focus last week, but not so much about prayer and community life. The top picture shows CHM Sisters and Associates praying in solidarity for immigrants and refugees. And the picture on the right, including Kathy, who is with us, and Sister Donna Schmidt. They're at a CHM gathering focusing on contemplation, facilitated by Sister Nancy Sylvester. Praying both individually and together as a community are important in religious life. And speaking some about community, on the left is a picture of the New Hope community in Des Moines around 2006. And as some of you know, I lived in Des Moines when I was in my formation process, becoming a sister. And this picture includes some of the women who came to our home on Saturday mornings to break bread together and talk about the Sunday scriptures. And the New Hope community had an emphasis on meals and prayer together, as well as volunteering in our inner city neighborhood. On the right is a picture of the group I have lived with on Vine Street in Davenport. And we've had some changes in the group, but Sisters Marianne and Miriam on the top right are original members of the group and worked on the plans for the building, which was built in the year 2000. It has been a very intergenerational group. We have had young women in their 20s stay with us for a period of time. An experience of community can reach beyond the circle of vowed members to include associates and other lay people who are committed to praying together, breaking bread together, and volunteering in our neighborhoods. And that being said, community doesn't necessarily mean living together in the same location. And here are the various locations where CHM sisters are. So as you can see, there are a number of states besides Iowa, Colorado, Montana, Illinois, Mississippi, and Virginia, as well as sisters in Mexico. And at the present time, we total 57 sisters and 67 associates. Grounded in our lives of prayer and sharing in community, we have a shared spirituality and sense of religious life that moves outward, although expressed in individual ways. There will be more on CHM spirituality in the second half of this evening. To talk about the spirituality of religious community, we use the term charism. And charism, as Sister Annie Klefke described, is a gift from God for the church and the world, given as different ways of living out the gospel. And the charism is a particular spirit of a religious community. And also there is a growing sense of charism of religious life. So whoever would like to, with the rest of you muted, we could say this CHM charism statement together. We, members of the Humility of Mary community, are called to listen to the Spirit in our changing world, and like Mary, to live the gospel message in simplicity, humility, and joy. For years, there has been talk about how religious life is evolving and how we don't know what the new will be. As the number of sisters becomes fewer, we know that things will not be the same. We have to acknowledge the grief that inevitably comes with loss. At the same time, we have faith that the changes offer new opportunities to imagine how we, as sisters, along with our lay partners, can respond to the needs of the times. Some ways that religious life has been changing include it becoming more diverse, there being more of a sense of a global sisterhood, an expanded focus on collaboration, and during these times of such division, an emphasis on deep listening and dialogue. In terms of diversity, here's some statistics, and these were presented several years ago at the Vision 2020 convocation of the Davenport Diocese. But it shows you the percentage of Catholics in the United States that are non-Caucasian, and 60% under age 18 are Hispanic. However, the fastest growing group of US Catholics is Asian. And some statistics from the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate, or CARA, has shown that 36% who professed final vows in 2017 are non-Caucasian. And this diversity was especially clear to me the last time I was able to attend a Giving Voice retreat. Giving Voice is a national organization for sisters under the age of 50. Thankfully, I was able to spend some time at the beach with these friends just prior to the pandemic and aging out of the group later that year. Here's a picture of the 4 Vietnamese sisters that live here at the Humility of Mary Center while completing their higher education. They have been so gracious in sharing their culture with us by celebrating the Lunar New Year. Collaboration among religious communities is not new, but you could say that it is expanding and offering new possibilities as religious communities are becoming smaller. Back to the Giving Voice organization. On the left, I am with 2 Humility of Mary sisters from Pennsylvania at a Giving Voice gathering. On the right are members of the Dubuque Area Vocation Association. Those of us in vocation ministry are able to provide support to one another and collaborate on programs which promote awareness of religious life. On a global scale, women religious worldwide have come together to form various anti-human trafficking networks. Talitha Kum is an organization which coordinates the efforts of these networks to make a greater impact in the work of accompanying victims and putting an end to human trafficking. Some CHMs and associates have been involved in this issue locally in the Davenport area. There's also a global effort by Catholic sisters to live the call of Laudato Si, as I talked about last Thursday. The Congregation of the Humility of Mary belongs to the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. Without losing our particular charism and identity, there's an increased sense of the charism of religious life as a whole. In looking at how sisters might respond to these unprecedented times, LCWR has emphasized the intersection of climate change, racism, and migration. There's an increasing awareness of how interconnected these 3 issues are. And we could even hear some of that as Bea and Irene were sharing. The LCWR region, Region 10, which the CHMs belong to, has produced a series of panel discussions. And I believe most of you would be aware of this. So it's been monthly discussions on Zoom addressing various topics related to this intersection, including food insecurity, education, and healthcare, just to name a few. And the final discussion in the series will air next week. Some of us have been able to gather the day or 2 after the panel discussion to be able to unpack what we learned and to share our thoughts and ideas. For anyone who has not had a chance to see these panel discussions, you can go to exploringintersections.org, and they are on that website and on their YouTube channel. Our CHM Communications Director, Lisa Martin, has been a part of the team that worked on this series. As I come to a close, I would like to add a few words about care of our sisters. As we continue to live our mission and direction statements, the care of our sisters remains a priority. It is important that each sister experience the fullness of life as much as possible until the end of her life on earth. A major task of the CHM leadership team, with the support of the community, is to make sure each sister's needs are provided for. We are very grateful for our lay staff at the Humility of Mary Center and at Bishop Drum Retirement Center in Johnston for the service they provide in caring for our sisters. And the CHM community remains open to receiving new members and exploring new ways of belonging to the community with or without religious vows. In this changing world and in these turbulent times, we are moving forward in faith, not alone, but with our partners such as staff, board and advisory committee members, and friends who help expand our vision and living of our charism and mission. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free. Otherwise, we'll be headed to a short break.
Lynn, you might say who belong to LCWR?
It's many of the religious communities in the United States for women religious, and there's another leadership organization. I believe it's the majority that belong to LCWR.
About 80% or more. So it's, and at your annual meetings, you have maybe between 900 and 1,000 persons present when they've met in person.
I don't know if it's been quite that high, but still it is hundreds of sisters. And when we were able to be in person, it's very powerful, you know, to be in a banquet hall with all of those sisters together.
Yes, I think the fact that it's an organization specifically for the leadership teams, I think is pretty significant. And it's true, Mary. I think when you and I started going, those would be in the numbers. And I think now we're more like the 600 or 700s. Although I think last time there's been a tendency to invite other people who are partnering with us in what we're trying to do. So I think we've gotten some of our numbers up again, closer to maybe 800 or 900 by inviting facilitators, for example, and members of the National Black Sisters Conference. So the Leadership Conference of Women Religious is also expanding its interactions and more direct activities with other groups.
I think mention of the National Black Sisters Conference gives an opportunity to indicate that there is also an organization of Hispanic sisters. And today, in fact, we had the feast of one of our women who founded the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament, who are particularly committed to serving Indigenous and African-American people. So we have that particular feast today too. And she was a Caucasian woman, US, who is on her way to being declared a saint. Catherine Drexel.
Lynn, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Could you tell a little bit about Billy Greenwood and her ministry, like a couple of months up during the year?
Oh, yeah, Billy, well, and before her husband passed away, she and her husband spent many years for part of the year serving at the border. And the most recent one was the Keno Border Initiative in Nogales, Arizona. And this year, right now, Billy is at Annunciation House in El Paso. And she's been there, oh, I'm losing track, but I think it's gonna be about a total of 6 weeks or so, something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And they were the couple who was in the picture with the
yes,
residents down at 6th Street.
yeah. Well, how about if we go ahead and go to our break this for 10 minutes, and we'll see you back. I have 7:33, so just 10 minutes from now. And thank you.
Let's see, wait a second.
So Paula, what's the weather like in Great Falls?
The weather this morning was foggy, wet, wonderful for usual hot and dry and windy place. So good for the skin to have a little moisture outside.
Oh, yeah.
But it's
Good.
going to get cold again, and by tomorrow we'll have more snow.
Okay.
It's so good to see everybody. I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
You too, Paula. It's been a long time, hasn't it? That's Kathy.
Oh, Kathy, thank you. Yes, it's been a long time.
Yes, it has. How many? Just millions of years, hasn't it?
I know. Look at the stars. We know the millions of years.
Well, you know, today we were trying to name, I was trying to name our classmates in the order that they, and so many of them I forgot. And also the number of young ones like Barbarine and Joanne Morrow that have
Yes.
died. Actually, they're not just left the community. Well, Joanne didn't, but all these ones that were. I was the split of the group. I was in the top age group, and then Marilyn was in the bottom, took the bottom all the way
Lynn?
down to, I think Joanne Morrow was our
Lynn?
baby. And then I think you probably know that Joanne Cipher Wilkinson lost her husband not too long ago to Alzheimer's. I don't know if you knew that or not. Did any of you?
No.
She didn't send it to the community, but she did send a donation. We talked to her yesterday. She sent a donation to the community.
Okay, thanks, Elaine. Yeah, Elaine, can you name our group? There's only 3 left.
I can name the 3 left. 2 Kathys and Elaine. We've lost
Yeah.
4 this year.
E-
Within the year.
ECC, right?
Take the sure answer.
Yeah, 2 Catherines and an Elaine
Pardon?
are left. Yeah. Oh my, I forgot about what's her name? Stiebold.
Beverly. Luce
Yeah.
Maria Beverly, Jenna Pritchard, who's right before me. I'm 5. Kathy Burns is 6. Marilyn might have been.
Oh, Kathy Burns,
Oh,
yes.
Kathy
you said-
Kelly, maybe, what's her face? Joyce Kelly.
No, she wasn't ahead of me.
Joyce
She wasn't
Kelly.
even in our class.
No, I mean, in order of our age, entrance, whatever.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we
Go ahead.
better get started with
That's
our
fine then.
here.
Lynn? Lynn?
Yes. Can you hear me? Oh. Well, that's too bad. Can you hear me, Kathleen? No. Oh, well, I'm afraid we better go ahead. We don't have Chris at this hour, our IT person, to help out. Okay, so this next piece, which is on the Magnificat, really is the piece that,
Lynn? Lynn?
yes,
Hello? Oh, boy.
We're hearing you, Kathleen.
I'm gonna try to send her a chat to see if,
I can see Kathleen and I can hear her.
yeah, I think the problem is she's not hearing us.
Oh, she just took off, it
Yeah.
looks like.
Okay.
I can't hear anything.
Okay.
I can't, yeah, I do, but I can't. And I can't find where it says,
Okay, well, I'm gonna try to go ahead here if we can. Okay, so this next piece, Sister Mary Penelope, she was going to do this piece and she put this presentation together, but unfortunately she's not able to be with us tonight. So I'm doing the best I can with it. Kind of added just a couple of my own thoughts and thoughts inspired by other CHMs. So the Magnificat in Luke chapter 1, 46 to 55 is a very important scripture passage for the CHMs. Mary, through her faith, makes possible the incarnation of Jesus, the divine uniting with the human, and at the same time gives us our possibility of participating in the divinity. And this is a version of the Magnificat written by our CHM sister, Delphine Vasquez. Irene, would you mind reading the first part there on this first slide?
My soul sings to you in utter joy, O my God, and my spirit is glad in your saving might. You have looked on me with love because of my simplicity and humility, and all women and men will say I am blessed. It is because of your holy name that I have been exalted. To all those who know you, you are gracious and full of mercy.
You show favor to the powerless and oppressed, and turn your face from the proud and domineering. Those who hunger in any way you have filled with their heart's desires, but the self-satisfied remain empty of your peace. In your mercy, you remember your chosen people, our ancient fathers and mothers, and their children forever. The Magnificat is very similar to the praise of Hannah, the mother of Samuel. Hannah had been barren and had suffered bullying from the other wife of her husband and others. She prayed fervently to have a son, and when she did, she offered him to God, and her prayer turned into a prayer of praise. From her humble position, knowing in her person God's love for the lesser ones and God's role in all that happens. Mary also knows her God and has great faith in the God of Israel. Her song of praise happens during her visit to her cousin Elizabeth. There's evidence that the Magnificat was a prayer used commonly by the early Christian communities. There's a reality that surrounds the encounter of these two women who are cousins and who are both in uncomfortable situations. First of all, Elizabeth is an older woman who has never had a child and who all of a sudden is pregnant. This makes her vulnerable, both health-wise and in society. Even today, when people see a middle-aged pregnant woman, They take a second look. She is the wife of the local priest who has all of a sudden lost his voice due to a lack of faith when an angel appeared to him, telling him Elizabeth would bear a son. And secondly, Mary, the unwed young pregnant woman, she is also vulnerable in the eyes of society. She has Joseph who is courting her, and because of her pregnancy, she is subject to public shaming. Yet she has had the great faith experience of saying yes to the totally unexplainable, yes to being the mother of God on earth. All women in Mary and Elizabeth's time were in nowhere land with no rights of their own. They couldn't be owners of land or property. They were not looked upon as persons, but more in the category of animals that were bought and sold. And so after saying her yes, Mary goes in haste to visit Elizabeth. Surely Mary, being younger, can help Elizabeth, who is an older pregnant woman. And surely Elizabeth, being a bit older in age and faith, can help Mary with her wisdom to live these first months of her pregnancy. In the encounter of these two faith-filled women, we have the wonder moment. Elizabeth pregnant with John and Mary pregnant with Jesus meet, and a joy-filled God moment happens that does not depend on society's norms or value system. Elizabeth, attentive to what is happening in her womb, names the moment and recognizes the blessedness of her cousin. As an older, wiser woman, there's no problem with recognizing how blessed Mary is. Elizabeth gives a loud cry and says, "Of all women, you are the most blessed, and blessed is the fruit of your womb. Yes, blessed is she who believed that what was spoken to her by the Lord would be fulfilled." Mary responds with the song of praise, the Magnificat, which begins with, "My soul sings to you in utter joy, O my God, and my spirit is glad in your saving might." The Magnificat is a statement of who Mary is and who the God she believes in is. Mary in the Magnificat adapts the prayer of Hannah in the Old Testament, recognizing the presence of God throughout history, in the past, the present, and in the future. Mary recognizes being loved and that she is a daughter of God. She recognizes all the good God has done for her. All God has in store for her is a reflection of that love. Her yes allows the God within to be birthed in a literal way. But Mary isn't the only one who God loves. Rather, all of humanity, each one of us as human beings, we are both less than God and are loved as children of God. And we are chosen. God has chosen to be united with us. Whether we realize it or not, whether we are ready or not, we are loved in our uniqueness as children of God. As in all families, God has special concern for those who have less, whether it is money, power, or whatever, and invites us to have the same concern for those in need. The Magnificat is a radical statement of how this social order is turned upside down. The inequity of having more or less, of some being more worthy than others, does not speak of God's love. The Gospels tell the story of how Jesus taught this. And as Christians and members of a religious community, this is very important to the Sisters of Humility. It is reflected in our mission and direction statements. The Magnificat ends with the reminder that throughout all of history, God has loved, loves, and will love God's people. God loves each of us, and we are called to share that love, especially with those most in need. God, through love, joyfully unites divinity with humanity and all of creation, and invites us to joyfully encounter the other and all of creation through God's love. Let us close with another reading of Sister Delphine's Magnificat. This time, I invite you to say it along with me as you stay muted. And as we say it together, be mindful of any word or phrase that especially stands out and speaks to you. And just hold that for a moment in the silence of your heart. My soul sings to you in utter joy, O my God, and my spirit is glad in your saving might. You have looked on me with love because of my simplicity and humility, and all women and men will say I am blessed. It is because of your holy name that I have been exalted. To all those who know you, you are gracious and full of mercy. You show favor to the powerless and oppressed, and turn your face from the proud and domineering. Those who hunger in any way, you have filled with their heart's desires, but the self-satisfied remain empty of your peace. In your mercy, you remember your chosen people, our ancient fathers and mothers, and their children forever. And now I'd like to hand it over to Sister Roberta to share some thoughts on humility. And she has come down to my office so that you can see what she has to share a little bit easier.
Thank you. Am I here? There we go. Okay, I'm here. I have not prepared a scholarly study of humility, and it's a good thing at this time of the night. I don't think we're ready to hear too much more of that. But how many of you know what a geode is? Have you seen one? Okay, I want to show you this one. Am I coming in? Go to the other side. Other side.
There you go.
Okay. As I looked at that geode, which I've had on my dresser for, several years now, I begin to think of it in terms of humility. When I was asked to do this piece, and the dictionary defines a geode as a round, hollow hump, sometimes lined with crystals. And then we come to humility, that's defined as unpretending, not grand, not lofty, not noble, and not splendid. And then you may wonder how I made the connection. What does a geode have to do with humility? Well, to me, it was a wonderful approach, as Sister Muriel used to say, any of you who know her or knew her. It's a wonderful approach to help us think about humility. Does a geode define us? A hollow lump? I hope not. But could it be not lofty, not grand? We are called rather to think of ourselves as the inside of this geode. Can you see it?
Yes.
Not sure whether.
Back up a little bit, Roberta. Back up. Pull it back a little farther.
The other way?
Back toward you.
Oh.
Better.
Yes.
Okay. We are called to be aware of and nurture the beauty within ourselves. Our gifts and our talents, our faith and our love, I believe, are represented by the crystals within that geode. And that we are to acknowledge, as part of humility, we acknowledge these gifts are bestowed on us by the all-loving and caring God. A God who wants us to use our gifts and talents for helping others and the betterment of the world. A world so badly in need of our unpretending, not grand, not lofty, not noble, or splendid prayers and good works. As we minister to others in any way that we are called. And this is how I define humility.
I like being one of those sparkles in there.
You could see the sparkle, huh?
I like being one of those sparkles in there. Among others, yes, you can see it. Geodes are gorgeous. And they come from the earth too, right, Roberta?
She said they come from the earth. Is that right?
Oh, yes, indeed, they come from the earth.
There we go.
Any farmer plowing will tell you that.
So there we go. And that's a nice point too, of being a bit of a stumbling block in areas where people don't want us to be, where we need to be. Well, like the farmer who doesn't like the geode.
Right, good point, Kathy.
It was very nice.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yes, thank you so much, Roberta. I think we could take just one or two other comments or questions about this, either the Magnificat or humility.
I thought those were beautiful, both of them. Very, very holy, very lovely. That's a very good way to do this towards the end. I feel very good about both the Magnificat and the sparkly geode.
Well, thank you.
And did Penelope put together that PowerPoint that you used?
Yes, she.
Then? Right.
Well,
All of the different images of Mary and Elizabeth, culturally and age-wise and everything, those were wonderful, wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah. And that little heart at the end with the kids and the family all sliding down and in and out. And yeah, she did. She found some lovely things, and that really was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thanks to Bea and Irene and everyone who's really put a lot into this to share with the CHM community, both vowed and non-vowed. And I hope it was really good for the associates as well as for the CHM congregation, well, the vowed congregation. I hate splitting those up. The family, I guess, the ones that take the vows and the ones that don't, but the family. And to think, I was thinking too about Marilyn and how we've got so many more humilities in heaven than we have on earth. And she's just another one. And it's not like praying for Marilyn. It's actually praying to Marilyn as another one of those humility angels that can guide us in some way that we don't even know where that is, where the farmer's stone is maybe, but anyway, and the sparkles.
I just want to say thank you for all the information and all the ideals you put together. It was good to learn some of these things for the future. And another thing I want to say is Sister Marilyn seemed like a very nice lady. I used to write to her. I know she couldn't write back, but hopefully she's up there, praying for us and being there for the CHMs and, praying that, CHMs will get bigger again.
Thank you, Jennifer.
But not weight-wise, right, Jennifer?
Can't we hear from Helen?
Yes, we still need to hear from Helen. Yeah.
She's muted.
Oh, Helen, you're muted. Helen, can you unmute yourself?
Ellen.
Let's see.
Try looking on the lower left of your screen and see if you got that little microphone.
There she goes.
Okay.
There she goes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to say that that whole definition of humility is so much more dynamic and powerful than it ever was when I learned it in a very dry religion class in high school. And thankfully.
So, Helen, would you like to share some about associates and just what being an associate has meant to you?
Sure. I have been an associate for 12 years. I started really really by accident. I just kind of stumbled into it. I was working at Sacred Heart Cathedral, and Pat Knopick, who used to be the head of associates, came into my office just to chat. And she mentioned that she was struggling to come up with a theme for a day of reflection for the associates. And I didn't know anything about the Sisters of Humility. I didn't know anything about associates, but I knew about days of reflection. And I said, can I help you? And she said, yeah. So I did it that year. And I thought, what a wonderful group of people. There's so much energy in the room. And the next year I volunteered to help her again, and I did it. And after the day was over, I thought, why am I not part of this group? I love strong women, and I'm looking for a much more feminine church. And so I asked her, and she said, sure, you can be an associate. And since then, it's just been an unfolding. Like I said, I knew nothing about any of this when I started. I had gone back to Aquinas Institute to get a degree in theology, and it was quite a stressful decision to do that. I had to leave Tony here, and I lived with a daughter in St. Louis. And very early on, I don't think I'd been there a week, I had this image of having followed God out on a limb, and the branch is bouncing. And in this image, I looked up, and it was Jesus bouncing on the limb and saying, isn't this fun? And I said, no, it's not fun. But in that moment, I knew that it would be fun soon. And I also knew that very soon Jesus would say, okay, now jump. As soon as we get comfortable, we're asked to jump. And I think of that when I think of the humilities, because all of life, especially the spiritual life, is a series of discerning, not what am I going to do, or what's my career, or what's my 2-year or 5-year goal, but what does God want me to do? And my greatest joy is coming on Wednesdays to have lunch with all of the sisters. And even though we don't sit down and talk about, well, what have you discerned this week? Or what am I struggling to discern? It is so powerful to be surrounded by women who take that seriously. And of course, we all know that the work ahead of us is to discern what is it going to look like to be an associate in the years to come. How will it be different? How will it sound? How will it feel? But I think that we will pray our way towards it. And it has just been a joy to be an associate of the Humility of Mary's. Just a joy. Thank you.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
You're welcome.
I'm just so grateful to work with you as one of our associate co-leaders.
Yes.
It's an amazing job, not a job, an amazing awareness, responsibility. Yeah.
Well, unless there's any other comments or questions, I did have a closing prayer. Let's see here. Oh, I lost a paper I was looking for here, but I do have the slides.
Is this what you look like? Oh, no.
Okay. Oh, sorry, if you can bear with me, it'll just take me just another second here. Okay, there we go. And how about if we just say this together as our closing prayer? This was written by Sister Jeannie. People of the earth, walking gently on sacred ground, connected to all of life, we journey through each cycle and season, dying and rising as moist humans, nourishing with our lives, young, old, sick, poor, hungry, homeless, our sisters and brothers in community, companions on the journey. Nourished in return, in prayer, in community, in mutual love, in the wonder of creation, in bread and wine, open to the Spirit, committed to search, to serve, to act justly, love tenderly, walk humbly with our God. Our lives are a little Magnificat, sung in simplicity and joy, with an ever grateful heart. Our souls proclaim your greatness, O God, and our spirits rejoice in you, our Savior. For you have looked with favor upon your lowly servants. Holy is your name. Well, thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. It was
Thank you.
wonderful to have you all on.
Thank you.
Hey,
I'm
Bye.
glad to.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
having
you.
you.
all. Bye.
love to you.
Bye.
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 Okay, bye.